My name is Sarah. This is my story. I married without love. I did not marry because my heart was happy. I married because my family decided it was time. At that moment, I was young, quiet, and afraid to say no. I thought marriage was my duty, not my choice. I lived with my parents in a small town. My life was simple. I woke up early, helped my mother at home, and sometimes went out with my younger sister. I never talked much about my feelings. In our family, feelings were not important. Respect and obedience were more important. One day, my parents told me about a proposal. The man's name was Adam. He worked in an office and lived in the city. My parents said he was a good man. He earned well and came from a good family. They asked me if I agreed. I stayed silent. My silence was taken as yes. I met Adam only 2 times before marriage. He was polite and calm. He did not smile much. He asked me simple questions about my family and my daily life. I answered quietly. There was no deep talk. There was no connection. But everyone around us seemed happy. The wedding day came quickly. The house was full of people, noise, and lights. I wore a beautiful dress, but my heart felt heavy. Everyone said I looked happy, but inside I felt empty. I smiled because I was told to smile. I followed every step like a robot. After the wedding, I moved to Adam's house. It was a clean and quiet apartment. Adam was respectful but distant. He spoke little. We ate meals together, but we did not talk much. At night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I missed my old room. I missed feeling safe. Days passed slowly. I tried to be a good wife. I cooked, cleaned, and kept the house tidy. Adam appreciated my work, but there was no warmth in his words. He went to work every morning and returned in the evening. Our life followed a routine, but there was no love in it. Sometimes I asked myself, is this marriage? I felt lonely even when I was not alone. I wanted to talk, to laugh, to. After marriage, my life became very quiet and slow. Every morning, I woke up early before Adam. I prepared breakfast carefully and packed his lunch. He always thanked me in a polite way, but his voice had no emotion. When he left for work, the door closed softly, and the house became silent again. That silence stayed with me all day. It felt heavy and lonely. I spent most of my day inside the house. I cleaned the rooms, washed clothes, and cooked meals. I tried to keep everything perfect, because I believed this was my duty as a wife. When my hands were busy, my mind was quiet. But when I sat down, my thoughts became loud. I thought about my parents' house, my sister, and the simple life I had before marriage. I missed laughing without fear and speaking freely. Adam came home every evening around the same time. We ate dinner together at the table. He asked polite questions like, "Did you eat?" or "Is everything okay?" I answered with short words. Our conversations never went deeper. We did not talk about feelings, dreams, or problems. It felt like we were 2 strangers sharing the same space. On weekends, life did not change much. Adam rested at home, watched television, or visited his friends. Sometimes he asked me to come with him. I went because I thought it was expected. I dressed nicely and smiled, but inside I felt empty. His friends talked and laughed, but I stayed quiet. I felt invisible, like I did not belong there. At night, when the lights were off and the room was dark, my heart felt the heaviest. I lay in bed next to Adam, but there was a distance between us that could not be measured. I stared at the ceiling and asked myself silent questions. Why did I agree to this marriage? Why did I stay quiet when my heart wanted to speak? I felt regret, but I pushed it away because I thought it was too late. One evening, Adam returned home very tired. His face looked stressed, and his eyes were dull. I served him dinner, hoping he would talk. But he ate. As time passed, I slowly began to notice small things about my life and about Adam. He was not a bad man. He never shouted at me, never hurt me, and never treated me with anger. But he was distant, like a wall stood between us. We lived in the same house, shared the same table, yet our hearts never met. Every morning followed the same pattern. I woke up early, prepared breakfast, and watched Adam leave for work. After the door closed, I stood still for a moment, listening to the silence. Sometimes I felt like the house was breathing with me, slow and heavy. I cleaned, cooked, and kept myself busy, but my heart felt tired even when my body was not. One afternoon, while cleaning the cupboard, I found an old notebook. It was mine, from before marriage. Inside it were small notes and dreams I once wrote. I read them slowly. I had written about wanting to study more, wanting to work, wanting to travel, and wanting to feel loved. As I read those words, my eyes filled with tears. I felt like I was reading about another person, someone who no longer existed. That evening, Adam came home earlier than usual. We sat at the table for dinner. The silence between us felt heavier than normal. Suddenly, he spoke. He said his work was stressful, and he felt tired all the time. I listened quietly. This was the first time he spoke about his feelings, even a little. I wanted to tell him about my pain too, but the words stayed inside my throat. After dinner, Adam sat on the sofa and watched television. I sat beside him, leaving some space between us. I looked at his face and wondered if he felt the same emptiness. I wondered if he also married without love. That thought stayed in my mind for a long time. That night, I could not sleep. I thought about my notebook, my dreams, and my current life. I realized I had slowly disappeared after marriage. I became someone who only followed rules and expectations. I forgot my own voice. The next day, I decided to do something small for. After that day in the park, my thoughts started to change slowly. I began to see my life more clearly. I still followed my daily routine, but inside my mind, questions were growing. Every morning, I woke up and completed my work at home, but my heart was no longer completely silent. It was thinking, remembering, and feeling. Adam remained the same. He was polite, calm, and distant. He never asked me about my feelings, and I never asked him about his heart. We lived carefully, like two people walking on thin ice, afraid to break something. Sometimes, I watched him while he read the newspaper or checked his phone. I wondered what he was thinking. I wondered if he felt lonely too. One evening, I received a call from my mother. She asked me if I was happy. I paused before answering. For a moment, I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to say that I felt empty and lost. But the words did not come out. I smiled even though she could not see me and said I was fine. After the call ended, I felt a deep sadness. I realized how often I lied to protect others, and how rarely I spoke for myself. That night, I could not sleep. I sat by the window and looked at the dark sky. The city lights were glowing softly. I thought about love. I thought about marriage. I thought about myself. I understood that love does not always come after marriage, as people say. Sometimes, it never comes. This thought scared me, but it also made me honest with myself. The next few days passed quietly. I started reading books in the afternoon. Books became my escape. Through stories, I saw different lives, different choices, and different endings. They made me think about what kind of ending I wanted for my own life. I did not know the answer yet, but I knew I did not want to live without feeling anything. One afternoon, Adam came home earlier than usual. He looked tired and sat down without saying much. I made tea and placed it in front of him. For a moment, our eyes met. There was something. The days continued to pass, but something inside me had changed. I still woke up early, still prepared meals, and still kept the house clean, but my heart was no longer asleep. I had started to observe my life instead of just living it. Every action, every silence, and every empty conversation felt clearer to me now. One morning, while having breakfast with Adam, I noticed how quiet we were. The sound of the spoon touching the cup felt louder than our words. I looked at him and realized that we had never really tried to know each other. We lived like two polite strangers who respected each other's space, but never entered each other's hearts. This realization made me feel both sad and calm. That afternoon, I decided to visit my parents' house. It had been a long time since I went there alone. When my mother opened the door, she smiled warmly. The familiar smell of the house and the sound of my sister's voice made my eyes fill with tears. I felt safe again, even if only for a short time. We talked about simple things, food, neighbors, and daily life. No one asked deep questions, and I was thankful for that. Later, I sat alone in my old room. Everything looked smaller than I remembered, but it still held my memories. I sat on the bed and thought about the girl I once was. She had dreams and hopes. She believed life would be kind. I felt sorry for leaving her behind so easily. When I returned home in the evening, Adam asked me how my day was. His question sounded routine, but this time I answered honestly. I said it was emotional. He looked at me for a moment, surprised, but he did not ask more. Still, that small honesty felt important to me. It was the first time I did not hide behind the word fine. That night, I thought deeply about my marriage. I understood that love cannot grow in complete silence. It needs words, effort, and courage. I did not know if Adam was willing to try, but I knew I could not continue pretending forever. Living without love. The next morning, I woke up at 5 o'clock. The house was completely quiet, and the sky outside was still dark. I sat on the bed for a long time, listening to my own breathing. Waking up this early felt different. It felt like I was giving time to myself before the world asked anything from me. I made a cup of tea and sat near the window, watching the sky slowly change its color. At 6 o'clock, the first light appeared. The morning felt calm and honest. I thought about my life and about the choices I had made. For many years, I believed that being quiet was the same as being good. I believed that patience meant silence. But now I was starting to understand that silence can also be a slow pain. Adam woke up later than usual that day. When he came to the kitchen, he looked surprised to see me already awake. He asked why I was up so early. I said I could not sleep. My answer was simple, but it was true. He nodded and sat down. For a few minutes, we drank tea together in silence. This silence felt different. It was not heavy, it was thoughtful. After Adam left for work, I did not start cleaning immediately. Instead, I sat with my thoughts. I asked myself what I really wanted. Did I want love? Did I want understanding? Or did I want freedom? The questions scared me, but I did not push them away. I let them stay. Later that day, I went out for a long walk. I walked slowly through the streets, watching people live their lives. Some looked happy, some looked tired, and some looked lost like me. I realized that many people live with quiet pain, hidden behind routine smiles. This made me feel less alone. In the afternoon, I wrote in my old notebook again. This time, I did not write dreams. I wrote truth. I wrote about my marriage, my loneliness, and my fear. Writing made my heart feel lighter. It felt like I was finally speaking, even if only to paper. When Adam returned home that evening, I noticed he looked tired again. I wanted to talk, but I did not force. The days after that morning felt different, even though my routine stayed the same. I still woke up early, prepared meals, and waited for Adam to return from work. But inside me, there was a quiet strength growing. I was no longer only surviving the days. I was thinking, feeling, and slowly understanding myself. One afternoon, while folding clothes, I suddenly felt tired, not in my body but in my heart. I sat down and allowed myself to feel that tiredness. For years, I had pushed my emotions aside, telling myself they did not matter. Now, I understood that ignoring them had only made them stronger. I realized I had been living for others' expectations, not for my own peace. That evening, Adam came home and sat at the dining table as usual. I served dinner and sat across from him. The room was quiet, but this time the silence felt heavy again. My heart started beating faster. I knew this moment mattered. I took a deep breath and spoke. I told him that I felt lonely. My voice was soft, but the words were real. I did not accuse him. I only spoke about my feelings. Adam looked surprised. He stayed quiet for a moment, then said he did not know I felt this way. He said marriage was difficult for him too. He admitted that he had married because it was expected, not because he was in love. Hearing this truth hurt, but it also made things clear. For the first time, we were honest with each other. That night, we talked more than we ever had before. We spoke about our fears, our past, and our silence. There were moments of sadness and moments of understanding. We did not solve everything, but something important happened. The wall between us began to crack. After that conversation, I felt lighter. I knew honesty did not bring instant happiness, but it brought truth. And truth felt better than living in confusion. I started to understand that love cannot grow without honesty, and peace cannot exist without self-respect. The next few days were calm. Adam was more tea. After that honest conversation, my life slowly began to move in a new direction. Nothing changed suddenly, but the feeling inside me was different. I woke up each morning with awareness instead of fear. I knew that whatever happened next, I would not ignore my feelings again. Adam and I continued our routine, but now there was more honesty between us. We talked more, even if the conversations were short. Sometimes we spoke about work, sometimes about family, and sometimes about our worries. There were still moments of silence, but that silence no longer felt empty. It felt thoughtful, like both of us were trying to understand ourselves and each other. I also started doing small things for myself. I read books, took long walks, and wrote in my notebook every day. Writing helped me understand my emotions clearly. I wrote about pain, regret, hope, and strength. I realized that even though my marriage began without love, my life did not have to end without meaning. One afternoon, while walking in the park, I watched people around me. I saw couples talking, children laughing, and old people sitting quietly. Life was full of different stories. Some were happy, some were sad, and some were unfinished. I understood that my story was not broken. It was simply changing. At home, Adam noticed my calmness. He said I seemed stronger. I did not smile widely, but I felt proud. Strength, for me, was no longer about patience and silence. It was about honesty and self-respect. I had learned that love cannot be forced, but dignity can be protected. There were still difficult moments. Sometimes I felt sad thinking about what I never had. Sometimes I felt scared about the future. But I did not run from those feelings anymore. I faced them quietly and honestly. That made all the difference. One night, before sleeping, I looked at myself in the mirror. I did not see a lost woman anymore. I saw someone who had learned a hard lesson and survived it. I whispered to myself that